Straight ahead this morning, defending women. House lawmakers take an essential step to ensure biological men remain out of women's sports. This week, the House voted to ban biological boys from playing in girls' sports just days after a federal judge in Kentucky struck down the Biden administration's controversial rewrite of Title IX that would have allowed it. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Parents Defending Education's Director of Outreach, Erika Sanzi. Happy Friday. Good morning to you.
Hi, Jan.
This is a huge win for the 75% of parents across the U.S. who say biological men and boys have no business playing in girls' sports teams or in girls' locker rooms or in girls' bathrooms. Talk about what this means for school sports and for girls and women moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really big deal because essentially the judge's decision vacates the entire, reinterpretation by the Biden administration. What's going to be really important, and by the way, the Trump administration, I'm sure, was going to take action and may still take action. But either way, this is a really great ruling for everybody, largely because even a majority of Democratic parent voters agree with this outcome.
Yeah, even they call it common sense legislation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that if you are out and about at the grocery store, at the sidelines of your kids' games, and just in normal life, and you raise this to people who don't follow politics closely, they think you're joking. Like they don't even believe that this could be a real thing because it's so insane.
Right.
And what the judge said basically was, no, like this law from 1972, we've defined, discrimination based on sex as exactly that. And there's no reason to change it. And gender identity, just doesn't play a role here. What I would say is that schools have been so confused by this for so long. Many were citing Title IX as their defense for doing it long before Title IX had even been changed by the Biden administration. So one thing people really need to do is get up to speed on what exactly is going on and then, make sure that they hold their school district's feet to the fire if and when their district starts to say, oh, no, we're doing this because of Title IX. Like, no, you're not.
Yeah. It's certainly a victory for those schools who didn't want to play against teams with biological males, and also for some of those congressional Democrats who felt like they couldn't speak out before, now speaking out about this issue, saying they do agree biological boys should not playing against girls' sports. We will see also what the Trump administration does in the future, if they add on to this or if there's even more changes that could come as a result of this. I want to talk about the civil complaint that your organization filed against Kansas City, D.C. Public Schools, and a community unit school in Illinois because of race-based hiring and for creating what you guys found out was racially segregated groups for students. Tell us more about your complaint.
Yeah, and I feel like you and I have talked about other districts doing similar things. So again, what we're talking about here are basically quotas where they have exact numbers in terms of teachers of a certain race or making sure they're not of a certain race. And then we also, again, see additional resources, mentoring, guidance being offered to teachers. But again, only based on their skin color. So they have to check certain boxes in order to be eligible for that.
I got to ask you, how do these, especially when you're dealing with public funds, how do they get away with this, especially with EEOC?
Well, that's kind of because they're basically just, giving the middle finger to EEOC, either because they don't know the law, which I have found to be the case in many instances, or they don't think it applies to everybody, which kind of means they don't know the law. So what we've discovered is that many school districts, especially in recent years, they don't think that the 1964 Civil Rights Act applies to everybody. It's almost like what they think is, oh, no. That only meant that the discrimination against Black Americans or people of color, that wasn't okay. So in their minds, they feel like now, as long as they switch it and they reverse it, they think that it's okay. But what they don't understand is you cannot discriminate based on race, period. And that means that if you're separating students by race, or you're allowing students into programs based on their race, or you're hiring based on race, you're in violation of the law. So you're going to have to find another way to either diversify your teacher pipeline or your teaching force and or help the students that are struggling the most which again, usually you can do that by looking at how they're doing in school, not by looking at the color of their skin.
And we're going to be following this story and following this complaint with you guys. Parents of Fitting Education's Director of Outreach, Erika Sanzi. Great to see you.
Good to see you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.